Nagoya in spring was quiet and gentle, with cherry blossoms fluttering through the air like whispers. In the peaceful suburb of Atsuta, Haruki Sano lived a modest life with his beloved Shiba Inu, Kumo. The two were inseparable. Kumo was more than a pet. He was Haruki's only family after the sudden passing of his parents in a railway accident years ago. Every morning, Haruki would walk Kumo through the narrow alleys lined with old wooden houses and vending machines buzzing softly. He often greeted his elderly neighbors with a respectful bow and received warm smiles in return. But one household always stood apart. The stone-walled property of the Fujimoto family loomed cold and quiet. Its mistress, Asai Fujimoto, was known throughout the neighborhood not for kindness, but for her short temper and sharp tongue. She disliked noise, mess, and anything that disrupted her immaculate control. And she especially disliked dogs. Haruki had always kept his distance from her. Despite Kumo's calm nature, Essie would glare through her curtains whenever they passed, her lips pursed in contempt. One morning, as Haruki and Kumo walked by, a window creaked open, and Essay's voice rang out like broken glass. "Control your dog. His barking is a nuisance." Haruki paused, bowed politely, and said nothing. Kumo stood by his side, tail wagging, completely unaware of the growing tension between his master and the woman who loathed him. That night, Kumo grew restless. He refused to eat and whined softly. Haruki sat beside him, stroking his fur, whispering soothing words, but something was clearly wrong. By morning, Kumo's body lay still and cold, his breathing silenced forever. Haruki was shattered. His companion, his only family, was gone. The vet confirmed it was poisoning, a type of insecticide, likely ingested through something Kumo had eaten the previous evening. Later that day, as Haruki walked through the neighborhood in a daze, he passed by the Fujimoto house. Essie stood on her porch, a twisted smile playing at her lips as she spoke loudly to a visitor. "That mud is finally gone. A little insecticide in the garden did the trick. Good riddance." Haruki stopped in his tracks.
His ears rang.
The blood in his veins turned to ice. She had done it, and she was proud of it. He turned slowly, his face blank, his eyes hollow, and walked away, but something dark had begun to stir inside him. Something cold, something precise, something that would change both their lives forever. The following days in Atsuta passed like a faded dream. Haruki went through the motions of daily life, but the weight of Kumo's absence was unbearable. He no longer took morning walks. The house felt colder, smaller. Yet behind his silent grief, something had taken root, a quiet, burning intention. Haruki spent his evenings researching. He studied laws, read forums, watched documentaries about animal cruelty cases in Japan. What struck him most was how rarely justice was served for pets. In most cases, the offenders walked free with only a slap on the wrist. But Haruki had no interest in loud accusations or public drama. He wanted something more elegant, more precise. He remembered Essay's words, loud, arrogant, self-incriminating. He wondered if she had spoken like that before, to others. He began observing her. From the narrow alley behind his house, he could see her backyard and part of her veranda. She often held tea gatherings there, entertaining equally sour-faced friends from the local women's club. Haruki started recording her conversations with a small directional microphone he borrowed from a friend at university. Days turned into weeks, and slowly, piece by piece, Essay's mask began to slip. One afternoon, as a storm rolled over Nagoya's skyline, Haruki sat in the darkened corner of his study, listening to the latest audio. Essay's shrill laughter filled the room, followed by a sentence that made him sit up straight. "He should be thankful I didn't leave the poison at his doorstep. Honestly, people who keep animals in cities are asking for trouble." There it was. Admittance. Mockery. Cruelty, wrapped in smugness. Haruki saved the recording, his fingers steady, his breath calm. That evening, he visited a local lawyer named Mr. Nishikawa, a quiet man with a soft voice and a firm mind. He showed him the recordings, explained the circumstances, and asked one simple question. "What can be done?" Mr. Nishikawa leaned back in his chair, listening intently. When the recording ended, he looked at Haruki with a measured expression. This is not enough to convict, but it may be enough to build a case. If we catch her again clearer, more direct, it could be criminal. Haruki bowed deeply. He had hoped for more, but this was something. A start. And now he knew exactly what to do next. He would give her the chance to reveal her cruelty, not just to him, but to everyone. And she would take it. Of that, he was sure. It began with a gift. On a clear Saturday morning, Haruki walked to the small bakery near Kaneyama Station and purchased a beautifully wrapped box of matcha biscuits. He added a handwritten note and placed the package outside Sae Fujimoto's front gate with perfect timing, just before she returned from her market visit. From behind the hedge, he watched. Sae paused. Her eyes narrowed as she read the note. "Thank you for your honesty the other day. I understand now. Let's make peace." She looked around suspiciously before picking up the box. Then, surprisingly, she smiled. Haruki knew exactly how to reach her. Pride, flattery, control. Sae liked being the one in power, being admired, even feared. She would never admit guilt, but she would gloat, given the right stage. Over the following week, Haruki continued his efforts. He offered small gestures, a polite nod, a bottle of chilled barley tea left at her gate during the hot afternoon, even helping her carry her heavy groceries from her car one morning. The transformation was immediate. Sae became warmer, less guarded. She began talking again, louder than before. Haruki had made himself no longer a threat, but an audience. It was exactly what he needed. Then came the neighborhood association meeting. Held at the Atsuta Community Hall, it was an event Sae never missed. She took pride in her role as vice chairwoman, always seated at the front, dominating the discussion about flower beds and festival schedules. Haruki requested to present a short message at the meeting, a token of appreciation for the community, he said. He brought tea and snacks, helped set up chairs, charmed the older residents with his soft voice and modest posture. When Sae arrived, she was all smiles. Haruki waited until midway through the meeting. Then, as the room quieted after a round of announcements, he stood and spoke gently. "Before we close, I'd like to share a little sound clip. It's from a few days ago, something I recorded while testing my new microphone. It surprised me, and I think it may interest others here too." He pressed play. At first, there was only the sound of wind. Then the unmistakable voice of Sae Fujimoto emerged, sharp and clear. He should be thankful I didn't leave the poison at his doorstep. Honestly, people who keep animals in cities are asking for trouble. Silence fell over the room like snow. Sae's smile froze. Haruki bowed politely, turned off the recording, and said nothing more. He did not need to. The damage was done. But Sae did not go quietly. By the next morning, whispers swirled through the streets of Atsuta like early morning mist. The once respected Sae Fujimoto had become the center of scandal. Neighbors who once bowed respectfully now avoided her gaze. The local grocer, who had always greeted her with polite formality, served her silently and with downcast eyes. Sae's fury was volcanic. She had not denied the recording. She couldn't. Her voice, her words, her venom were undeniable. But humiliation, in her eyes, was more dangerous than guilt. She did not grieve the loss of respect. She craved revenge. Late that evening, Haruki was walking home from the convenience store when he noticed the door to his house slightly ajar. His pulse quickened. He stepped inside cautiously. Nothing looked out of place. But something felt wrong. He checked the kitchen,
His study. His bedroom.
Then, in the corner of the living room, he found it. The microphone. Smashed into pieces. Someone had broken in, and they had sent a message. Haruki stared at the wreckage in silence. He felt no fear, only certainty. She had begun her counterattack. The next day, Haruki visited Mr. Nishikawa again. This time, he brought a new recording, one he had wisely backed up before the device was destroyed. The lawyer listened carefully, then leaned forward with a grave look. She's unpredictable now. If she feels cornered, she may escalate. We need to be cautious. But Haruki was already a step ahead. That night, he installed a new set of surveillance cameras, small, discreet, positioned to watch both the front and rear of his house. He also planted one camera pointing at SAE's back gate, hidden in a public alley where no one would suspect. Days passed. Then, just after midnight on a rainy Tuesday, one of the cameras triggered an alert. Haruki checked the footage in real time. A shadow moved across the alley. A figure crept towards the back of his property, wearing a raincoat and gloves. She didn't notice the camera. She didn't hesitate. She bent down near Haruki's garden and placed something on the ground, a small, sealed packet. Haruki recognized it instantly. The same brand of insecticide the vet had identified. The next morning, before dawn, Haruki carefully retrieved the packet with gloves, sealed it in a plastic bag, and labeled it. Then, he copied the footage to a USB drive and headed straight for Mr. Nishikawa's office. The evidence was now undeniable. She had returned to the scene, and this time, she had left proof. But as Haruki walked past SAE's house on his way back, he noticed something strange. The front door was wide open, and inside, everything was silent. Too silent. The morning air was dense with the smell of wet leaves and something colder, dread. Haruki stood before the open door of SAE Fujimoto's home, unsure whether to knock, call out, or walk away. His instincts warned him to stay clear, but something deeper, curiosity, or perhaps caution, pulled him forward. He stepped inside. The house, once fastidiously kept, now felt abandoned. The genkan was littered with damp footprints. One of her house slippers lay on its side, as if kicked off in a rush. "Assistant," he called out, voice low. No reply. He moved cautiously through the corridor. The kitchen lights were on, but a teacup sat untouched on the counter, steam long faded. In the living room, the television flickered silently, playing a paused news segment. Then he heard it, a creak upstairs. Every hair on Haruki's neck stood on end. He climbed the wooden steps slowly, one hand brushing the rail. The hallway above was dim. At the far end, SAE's bedroom door stood slightly ajar, swaying gently. Haruki pushed it open. The room was empty, but on the low table beneath the window sat an open photo album, pages fluttering in the breeze. Images of SAE in her youth, her late husband, her son who had moved away years ago. And on the final page, a photograph of Kumo. Haruki blinked. She had kept a photo of his dog. Before he could process it, a sudden noise behind him made him spin. It was SAE. She stood in the doorway, her raincoat still damp, hair unkempt, eyes red. "You," she hissed. "You think you're clever." Haruki didn't speak. SAE's expression was twisted, her voice trembling with fury and something deeper, desperation. "You humiliated me. Turned this whole town against me. Do you know what that feels like?" He took a slow breath. "You killed my dog." That silence again. SAE stepped forward, but stumbled slightly, clutching the doorframe. Her hands were shaking. "I didn't mean to kill him," she muttered. "I just wanted to scare you. I thought you needed to learn your place." Haruki stared at her. "And now?" She looked away. "Now, I have nothing left." For the first time he saw it, not just malice, but emptiness. SAE had no family here. Her social circle had collapsed. The image she had built for years was crumbling. But that did not erase what she had done. Haruki took a step back. "This ends now. The evidence is with the lawyer. You need to come forward, before the police do." SAE gave a hollow laugh. "Do you really think they'll care about a dog? They'll care about the insecticide, the trespassing, the attempt to silence me." SAE didn't reply. She walked past him slowly, moving toward the window, staring out at the drizzle beyond. For a moment, she seemed almost at peace. Then she said softly, "You've already taken everything from me, Haruki. What more do you want?" He stood in the doorway, silent. Then, with quiet certainty, he answered, "Justice." The next morning arrived with a strange quiet, as if the city of Nagoya itself was holding its breath. Haruki sat at the small table in his kitchen, the remnants of sleeplessness under his eyes. In front of him lay the sealed packet of insecticide, the USB with footage, and a small black notebook SE had dropped during their confrontation. He hadn't meant to keep it, but he couldn't ignore it either. He opened the first page. Her handwriting was delicate, a contrast to the bitterness she had become known for. Each entry was dated, carefully written, and revealed a mind burdened not just by pride, but by loneliness. The first few pages were filled with daily complaints. Noise from Haruki's garden. Barking late at night. Flowers trampled by Kumo. It was obsessive, but not yet malicious. But as he turned the pages, the tone changed. I see him laughing with the others. They smile at him like he belongs. No one smiles at me like that anymore. I tried saying good morning. He ignored me, just like the rest. Haruki felt something tighten in his chest. He had never ignored her intentionally, but in hindsight, he realized he had avoided her, like everyone else. Then came the final pages. The dog barked again last night. I couldn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling, remembering my husband's cough. The way Kumo barks, it sounds like him, near the end. It's driving me mad. I bought something today, just to send a message, just to stop the noise. The last entry was undated. I don't want to be the villain, but if I'm already hated, what's the difference? Haruki closed the notebook slowly. This was no confession meant for court. It was a journal, a bleeding heart poured onto paper, never meant for anyone else's eyes. But it made everything clearer. Sae hadn't just killed Kumo out of malice, she did it out of isolation. Out of a festering wound no one had bothered to treat. Later that afternoon, Haruki returned to Mr. Nishikawa's office and handed over the final pieces of evidence. The lawyer nodded grimly. This will be enough. The police will act now. Haruki didn't feel victorious. He felt heavier. That evening, as dusk fell over the tiled roofs of Atsuta, Haruki found himself walking past the riverside path where he used to take Kumo for walks. The wind rustled through the trees, and for a fleeting second, he imagined the sound of paws trotting beside him. He stopped near the embankment where Kumo had loved to chase butterflies. And there, half buried in the grass, something caught his eye. A chewed-up tennis ball. One of Kumo's. He picked it up gently, brushed off the dirt, and held it for a long moment. That night, a police car quietly parked in front of Sae Fujimoto's house. No sirens. No scene. Just two officers, a quiet knock, and the closing of a door behind them. The case had begun. But something else had ended. A week passed. Rain fell more frequently now, drumming lightly against the tiled roofs of Atsuta. Haruki walked through the stone path of Atsuta Jingu Shrine, the solemn hush of the grounds offering a strange comfort. The ancient torii gates stood tall, rain-darkened and moss-slick, their archways holding centuries of whispered prayers. Haruki wasn't there to pray. He was searching. Not for Sae, but for understanding. Locals had begun whispering. Some pitied her. Others spat her name like poison. But the sharpest voices came from those who claimed they had always known something was wrong. She always watched people from behind curtains, said one. Never smiled at children, said another. Haruki listened, but said nothing. He didn't want revenge. But he did want the truth to breathe, not buried beneath rumors and pity. At a small tea stall near the shrine's outer path, Haruki saw Mr. Yamamoto, the elderly groundskeeper who had once helped search for Kumo. The old man raised an eyebrow as Haruki approached. She's not in custody, you know, Yamamoto muttered, pouring tea. Police let her go. Not enough evidence for criminal charges. Haruki froze. But the footage, the insecticide. All circumstantial, the old man cut in. Her lawyer twisted it. Claimed she was spraying for pests. Claimed the footage showed nothing but a dark figure, no clear ID. Said the journal was stolen property. Haruki gripped the edge of the table. So what now? He asked. Mr. Yamamoto's eyes were tired. Now? She's disappeared. Rumor says she left town. Some say she went to stay with her sister in Gifu. Others think she checked herself into a sanatorium. No one really knows. Silence hung between them. Then Yamamoto added quietly, "Justice doesn't always come with a gavel." Haruki stared at his tea, its surface rippling gently with the wind. He thought of the nights he had spent chasing shadows, searching for peace in punishment. But was peace really in punishment? The next day, he visited the grave of Kumo. It sat on a small hill behind a veterinarian clinic, under a blooming sakura tree. A wooden plaque bore his name, with a small bell tied around it, the one Kumo always wore on his collar. Haruki sat in the grass, watching petals fall.
He didn't speak.
He didn't need to. He stayed there for hours, until the sky turned pink with evening light. In the distance, wind chimes rang from someone's garden. A soft reminder that some echoes never fade. Summer crept into Nagoya like a slow breath, warming the stones of the old town and coaxing hydrangeas into bloom. The once vibrant sounds of Haruki's garden had quieted, replaced by the soft rustle of wind through overgrown grass. Since Kumo's passing, Haruki hadn't had the heart to tend the garden. It had become a silent monument to loss. But one morning, a faint scratching noise at the back gate stirred him from his tea. He stepped outside cautiously and found a small, scruffy kitten tangled in the wire ivy. Shivering, mewing. Stray, but not feral. He hesitated, then picked it up.
It didn't resist.
Haruki brought it inside, fed it warm milk, and let it curl on the spot where Kumo used to sleep, a space that had stayed untouched for weeks. He didn't name the kitten. Not yet. But its presence filled a crack he hadn't realized was still bleeding. Later that week, a letter arrived. No return address. Just his name, handwritten in firm, clean strokes. Inside was a folded sheet. No apology. No confession. Just a line. If flowers can grow in silence, perhaps forgiveness can too. There was no signature. But he recognized the writing. Sae Fujimoto. Haruki didn't know where she was, or if she even meant to be found. But she had left something behind. Not just pain, but a plea. Not for redemption, perhaps, but for the chance to be remembered differently. That afternoon, Haruki stepped into his neglected garden. The weeds were high, the stones half swallowed by earth. But amid the wild growth, the irises Kumo had once trampled were still there, stubborn and blue. Beside them, something unexpected, a row of tiny pink buds, neatly planted in a line that hadn't been there before. He bent down and touched the soil.
Fresh.
Sometime before she vanished, Essie must have come here. Not to destroy, but to leave something behind. A gesture no one would ever see. Except him. He stood silently, then fetched a spade from the shed. For the first time in months, he began clearing the overgrowth, slowly bringing the garden back to life. With each stroke, the silence between them shifted, no longer an accusation, but an echo. Of things left unsaid. Of things that still mattered. As dusk approached, the little kitten padded over and curled up beside a stone where Kumo's collar bell now rested. Haruki sat nearby, staring into the evening haze.
The past couldn't be changed.
But something could still grow. It was early autumn when the sound returned. A quiet, rhythmic tapping on the pavement outside Haruki's house. He heard it one rainy afternoon, a slow, deliberate cadence. Tap, 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 pause. Then again. Tap, tap, tap. It was the exact sound Sae's old umbrella used to make. He remembered it clearly from the months they had lived as neighbors. Always the same steps, always the same rain-beaten rhythm. At first, he thought it was his memory playing tricks. But when he opened the sliding door to the street, no one was there. Only puddles glistening under the amber street lamp, and a damp chill clinging to the air. The next day, the same sound came again. At the same time, then vanished. Haruki couldn't explain why, but he began to wait for it. Each evening, as the wind grew restless and clouds gathered, he brewed a cup of tea and sat by the window, watching the road. On the fourth evening, something changed. This time, the sound stopped at his gate. And stayed. Haruki stood, heart pounding, and walked slowly outside. The street was empty, except for a single item hanging carefully on the latch of his gate. A red umbrella. Old, but well kept.
Clean.
Familiar. He picked it up, hands trembling. Tucked inside was a folded note. Damp at the edges, but still legible. I walked past your house every day for 3 weeks. I couldn't knock. I wasn't sure if I deserved to. But this umbrella remembers the rain better than I ever will. There was no name, no date, but it was her. He held the umbrella for a long time, standing alone in the drizzle. Then he opened it, slowly, and let the sound return. The tap, tap, tap as he walked back inside. It echoed not as a ghost, but as something else.
A choice.
The next morning, Haruki returned to the garden. The kitten followed him, curious and bold. He knelt near the flowers Asai had planted and dug a small trench. Into it, he laid the folded note, carefully covering it with earth. Then he stuck the umbrella upright beside it. A quiet monument.
To pain.
To forgiveness. And to the rhythm of returning. Shiratori Garden was quiet in November. The maple trees burned amber and crimson, their leaves drifting gently onto the still surface of the koi pond. A crane statue stood frozen near the edge, casting a long reflection beneath the gray sky. It was a place that had always held a strange stillness, not emptiness, but breath held in waiting. Haruki walked slowly through the garden paths.
He wasn't here by chance.
A week ago, a neighbor mentioned seeing Asai. Not in passing, not in rumor, but truly, unmistakably her. She had been sitting on a bench near the water, alone, umbrella resting beside her, just watching the koi glide beneath the surface. Haruki hadn't spoken her name aloud in weeks, but when he heard that, something inside him shifted. He didn't know what he would say if he saw her. He didn't even know if he should say anything at all.
But he came anyway.
The gravel crunched softly beneath his steps as he reached the far side of the pond. The bench was there. Empty. No umbrella. No footprints. Just silence. Haruki sat down. For a while, he simply listened. To the faint wind in the reeds. To the water lapping gently against the edge. To a crow in the distance calling once, then gone. Then a soft sound. Not footsteps.
Breath. He turned.
Essie stood a few meters away, half hidden beneath the branches of a maple tree.
She didn't speak. Neither did he.
For a long time, they just looked at each other. The wind moved the leaves. One fell between them, brushing the stone path like a whisper. Sae stepped forward. Only once. Then stopped. Haruki didn't move. He didn't nod. But his hand, resting on the bench, shifted slightly, just enough to make space.
She saw. And she sat.
Still no words. But the space between them felt different now. Not cold. Not bitter. Just quiet. And inside that quiet, something lived. Not peace, but the beginning of it. They sat like that as the afternoon passed into dusk. The koi moved silently through the water. A single leaf floated past, then sank. And when the wind picked up again, it carried with it no sound of anger, no echo of grief. Only the faint memory of a bell. And the gentle hush of things finally still.